Hi, thanks for coming back to Real Estate Insiders. I'm Danny Poulos from the Elite Lending Team at Bemby. Joining us right now is Greg Martz from Tour Factory, and he's an expert in digital images and video for marketing real estate and selling properties. So we've got some exciting information for you today. Greg, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Danny.
Tell us a little bit about what you do and how long you've been doing it.
I have been a photographer about 10 years. I split my time between New Jersey and Florida. Prior to that, I was an IT guy. I was a consultant, and prior to that, in a past life, I was an actor, a performer.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm
both sides of the camera.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been in the creative field for a while, so that's why I love photography, because there's a lot of creative energy that goes into it and that kind of thing.
And that's a great combination also when IT from photography, because when you talk about real estate marketing, those are two things that really come together nowadays.
Yeah, and when you're doing the photography piece of it, you really do have part of your mind is on the technical part of it, and then the other part is on the creative, how things look. And there's a lot to it as far as angles, as far as some kind of cleaning up the house and making it look good and staging it. There's a bit of photography staging it.
Right, absolutely. So sometimes you think that this goes without saying, but I've seen a lot of listings with poor pictures in them, and it amazes me sometimes. So explain a little bit just how important pictures seem to be right now when you're marketing a piece of property.
Well, I think it's funny because I split my time between New Jersey and Florida. So when this last time when I came down here in November, I started looking for some places online, and it blows me away every time when I look and you see one photo or two photos and they're dark and they're terrible and everybody knows it, and you're thinking, okay, you're marketing a house. That's what you're doing. So it's a commercial for a house in that area. Sure. So if you're going to do it, the first thing you look at is the image, or what you're looking at. And yet I guess there's a concept that you just go in with your iPhone and you just take a few photos. Doesn't matter if it's dark, if it's light, what you're looking at, what angle you're looking at. How many times have you seen photos and it's a toilet seat open or something like that? You go, oh my God, what are they doing? So it's crazy. But I've seen a lot of those, and today it's kind of amazes me that today it's still like that. So to me it's vitally important that an agent, if that's what they're doing and they're trying to sell a house, they're going to market a house, the first thing you look at, and you mentioned this to me when we were talking earlier, is that it's the image. You start with the image. That's the first thing, and really the only thing that you have to show it prior to going into the house itself.
Well, things have changed so much, I'd say over the last 25 years in this business, because most people start their searches on the internet now. Right. So it's all about the visual. It's not that they're looking through a newspaper and seeing one little color picture and calling for information. Yeah. They're getting the information right there. So if you're just showing them that one picture they would have seen in the newspaper, just doesn't get it anymore, right?
No, and the technology of seeing it on, and now with the retina displays and everything, you're talking about a really beautiful picture when you look on the internet. So if you put something that's dull and dark and not sharp, it's terrible. It looks terrible. And we've come to expect absolutely stunning images. So if you dumb it down with something like that, you're really doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, so if you were looking at the same picture in the old days in the newspaper, you may just say, well, it's a newspaper, how good can it look?
That's right.
But now we know how good pictures can look. Right. So if we're seeing your photos side by side with professional photos, it looks like you just didn't care enough, right?
Yeah, and believe me, everybody knows it. You're looking online, you know it. If you see something, you go, okay, that person didn't take any time. They shot that with their iPhone, or they shot that with their iPad. You know it. Everybody knows it. Right. So to me, that equates to how much energy and time that real estate agent wants to put into marketing that house. And when I see something like that, I think, oh, that agent doesn't care. They don't really care, or it's not going to make them enough money to take the time to do it. Right. And that's kind of that's not really the way to go, because you know what honestly what's really interesting is you can make a house or a smaller home that is not as beautiful and grand and open as a big home. You can make that look better. If it's not in a great shape, you can do it with photography. You can make it look better than a house that's more expensive. Houses that are more expensive are more difficult to shoot.
And it really becomes a reflection on the agent, right? Exactly. If they're responsible for doing the marketing, and you see big, beautiful pictures or shoddy pictures, the whole idea is that you're marketing a property so that you may get more listings because people like the way you market, right?
Exactly.
If they see that's the way you do it,
exactly.
Again, that's you're always being compared to somebody else.
Right. Right.
So there's somebody else taking those perfect pictures.
Right. So it's not just about selling that house, but it's like, what's the next house you're going to get? And if people see, let's say, well, let me see what you've done. Let me see how you've marketed a previous listing. Now you're talking about looking at photos, and they're going to go, why would I want to work with you if that's all you're going to give it? That's all you're going to do.
Right, because they're going to look at your past work. It's hard to say, well, that's what I did before, but for you,
right.
because it's sort of a reflection on the way you do your business and the way you do your marketing.
Well, and it's interesting because the business has evolved that way. The business has evolved by the homeowner saying, this is what I want. These are the photos I want.
Right.
I want a virtual tour, I want video, I want panoramas, or whatever it may be. And these days, it's like, I want a quadcopter, a shot, an aerial shot.
Right.
Or I want a pole photography, or I want something different. That's what drives the market. So it's interesting that the homeowners are actually more in tune with it than sometimes the agents are.
Right, and we're not saying that you need, an aerial shot for your $40,000 rental property downtown, but it's commensurate with the type of property you're trying to market.
Yeah, well, and what I was alluding to earlier is that you can you can take a smaller property, and if you stage it for photographs,
right,
you can make it look really good. And if you bring in some lighting and you find the right angle, you can make a huge difference on that property.
So you mentioned panoramic photography. Just tell me what that is.
Well, panorama photography was like the big kind of gimmick probably about 5 years ago. And that is where you take photos, you take individual photos, you usually shoot them vertically, and you take many of them in a pattern like this, in a circular pattern.
So you'd have to be in a tripod or something? And
Usually you do. I don't happen to shoot on a tripod because I like to get into different various places, and sometimes it's up against a wall in the corner of a bathroom. But then I'm still spinning the camera like this. And then what you do is after that, you stitch those photos together. So, iPhones these days will actually take panoramas, and you just move the phone like this and it'll take a panoramic shot. But on high-end photography, you have to spin it a specific way so it doesn't get out of alignment. But anyway, you stitch those photos, and now you can see this whole, panorama of what you're looking at. And the beauty of that is, what still holds true is that you can see much more of the house and the movement in the house.
Right.
And what I like about it, and we discussed this earlier as well, is usually the viewer can control the viewer. So I can say I want to see over here, or I want to see back this way. The difference between that and video, full motion video, is that you're not in control as the viewer. The videographer that took that is actually in control and tells you where you're going to go look.
That's a great point. So it's not, if you're watching the video, of course you could just pause and move on, but you're saying with the panorama, you can go back, look around, so you're moving yourself.
Yeah, usually the mouse allows you to go to the right or go to the left and move around in it. So it gives you some kind of control about what they're looking. And depending on the emotionality of the viewer that's looking at the properties, some people like to just bang through the photos. Like, I don't need to see much time. I need 2 seconds on each photo, and then I'm on to the next one.
Right.
Some people want the emotional feeling of it, and they want music, and they want all that good stuff that makes them feel like, yeah, I could be in that house. That feels good.
Absolutely.
So that panorama can actually you can get the feel of it, and you can look where this room leads to this room. In addition to that, there's a lot of people that do interactive floor plans, which is where you start with the floor plan, and that takes that kind of intellectual brain. Some people like to start that way. Let me see the layout of it, and then let me click on that room and see the photo in that room and see what it looks like.
Right.
And then let me come back out and let me look in this room. It's all really how you want to approach it.
We know a lot about our sellers, because we're spending time with them.
Right.
But you don't really know anything about who your buyer is going to end up being.
That's right.
So you're talking about approaching people from so many different angles. The person who's turned on by the way the music makes them feel as they move through the house.
Right.
The person that can be in control.
That's right.
The person that wants to run. These are all different people.
Right.
So if you're using a professional outlook to the way you're presenting your images, you're really covering the wide spectrum of buyers.
I think that's exactly right. I think that's exactly right. You have to cover those areas, so you have to look at it in different ways to approach it. And you can't rule any out, because like you said, you have a vast audience that's looking at it, and you may have someone who wants to emotionally connect with that property, whether it's because it's all the different ways. There's a lot of different ways you can emotionally connect to it, but music plays a role in that.
Right.
So yeah, you're right on.
And now we have to think about how people where they're finding these images and how they're viewing them. So we know most people are starting on the internet.
Yes, that's
so. I guess you're sort of concerned with if your image is on the internet, what happens when you click on that one picture, right?
Right.
Where does it take you?
Right.
So what would be the best scenario for if there's a picture, there's an image, let's say on Pinterest, or where does it take you?
Right. And yeah, what's hosting it? What's hosting your photos? That's a lot of that's distribution, where it's getting distributed to. Lots of it, if you're having your own website and you're putting them on your own website, or does that link to a virtual tour? Where those are going, and that, to me, that's really important. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a website, somebody's website, and you click on the photo and one photo pops up. And then you're like, okay, I'm ready to move to the next photo, but you have no easy way to get to the next photo. So that's a part of the whole experience. And if you want an emotional experience, you have to have that, the music and the movement and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so that's a good point. It's what you do. It's one thing to have the pictures, but you're thinking also about the next stage.
Yes.
How are they delivered? How are they viewed? How does it take them someplace that's closer to wanting to make an appointment to see the house? I mean, that's what we're looking for, right?
Exactly. Ultimately, that's what you want. In some ways, it works as a filter. It actually filters out people, which is a good thing. Although, an agent wants to meet as many people as possible. You never know what's going to happen. But you don't want people that have no interest in it whatsoever. So it does work as a filter both ways to get people, but ultimately, get them through the door. But, if I was an agent, I want someone coming through a door who says, wow, you did a nice job. I love the photos that you took, and I love the way they look at them, and I'm not only am I interested in this property, but if you ever sell this, I want you to be my agent.
Right. And just reviewing, if we think of all those tools, if you're taking professional digital images, if you're using a panorama view that people can control, if you're putting it into a virtual tour, if you're concerned with the delivery mechanism, when all this stuff comes together, that's really a demonstration to the rest of the world and your potential market that that's how you sell properties, right? I mean, that's an important point you've made to me, is that this is a reflection of the agent. If
an agent considers himself a marketing expert, which they should be because they're selling a product, then they better know how to do it in the best possible way. And that, in today's market, it better look darn good and be easily accessible to the audience.
And I'm not saying that some agents aren't very, very good photographers, because I've seen some great work.
There are some.
But if you're really looking to take it, if you're not a professional photographer and you're really looking to take it to the next level, where people say, wow, this is better than anything else I've seen before, you need to bring in someone like yourself.
Inherent in being a good photographer means you having good equipment, having good lighting, and understanding all those concepts. So it's not as easy as just being good at finding angles that are good, because there are some agents that are like, those are really good angles.
Right, so you sort of have to have an eye for the whole thing too.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, Greg, tell everybody how they can reach you and Tour Factory if they want to learn more.
Yeah, you bet. It's Tour Factory, and I can always be reached at 908-400-3662. And you can always go to the Tour Factory site and check out things there and see all the options that you have available for you. So
thanks so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.